Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This happened a few years back. Our homeowners association has always been known to be sneaky, to give false accusations against homeowners. Especially in this day with security cameras, we can easily spot who the investigators are. Recently, a homeowner was told she needed approval before re-shingling her roof. Thing is, her roof hadn't been re-shingled in 10 years, and she had no plans to do it. Such things are common. Call it a mistake, call it malicious. Well, a few years ago, we had our time to shine. One simple morning, I was temporarily living with my father. We decided to go out to get groceries and found that his pickup truck had been smashed into. Nothing was taken, it was just smashed into. In fact, I still have pictures from that day, just before the cops arrived. The cops arrived, did some investigating, and found that a rock inside the truck was from a house down the street. Unfortunately, they couldn't get anyone to admit to the crime, nor could they prove it was him. Understandably, criminals grab things they find, but it was suspicious. The rock was a unique type that no one else in the neighborhood had, some round polished type. After this incident, I installed a security camera on my father's house. Not 2 days later, we got a homeowners association violation for a vehicle eyesore that needed to be removed. I'm confused about how such a letter could have been written up so fast, and I started to suspect foul play. One day we were home and had a knock at the door. The homeowners association had actually called a code inspection officer. The week hadn't even been over yet, so the parts to fix the truck weren't delivered yet. We weren't paying expedited shipping for damages we didn't cause, and the truck was so old that insurance would probably just total it. The truck is sentimental to him, so he wasn't going to get rid of it. It still ran great. The code inspection officer tells my father that vehicles which do not run need to be removed. They both stop talking and almost say at the same time, "Don't I know you?" It turns out, the code inspection officer went to the same church as my father, and they knew each other. This isn't malicious compliance yet, we are only just beginning. The officer tells my father if he can show the truck starts, he's going to write it up as being in code. My father starts the truck just fine as the engine isn't damaged. He tells him to go on with his day and to have a good one. At this point, we are furious because we're starting to suspect the homeowners association may have done this, as there is no way they could have possibly known so fast. Unfortunately, our turn of the street had no neighbors with security cameras until I installed one on our house, so it caught nothing specific to our incident. Down the street, these people supposedly broke into a car as well, but the camera on their house was unable to see anything. Here is where the fun begins. Fast forward a couple of months after nothing happened, I decided to install a new dash cam in my car. I found a good one that uses very little power off the battery and can activate if there is any bumps to the car, even if the car is off. It just needs to be wired straight to the battery for this. A few days later, we got a violation notice for our mailbox being crooked. It wasn't crooked much, but I do remember it recently having an angle. Odd, I could just fix it. But my car was aiming straight at the mailbox. I'm thinking, no, this couldn't be possible. It only records if there is a bump. I took out the memory card and apparently I either didn't configure it correctly, but it was recording the whole time. It never went into sleep mode. I watched as the investigator walked up to the mailbox, pushed it crooked, then wrote down on his tablet his findings and took a picture for records. I'm appalled at what I see. I have the proof that I needed. Now for the malicious compliance part. They wanted us to come to the board meeting and present what is going on at our address. We haven't told them yet that we had the pictures, but to summarize real fast how our homeowners association works, the board hires an outside company to do the grunt work. Let's call it Bintry Management. We go to the meeting and sit down. Bintry Management has the one in control of our account. And I swear to you, she looked like a Karen. So the name fit for her. As time goes by in the meeting, we get to discuss what is happening at our house. We present the timelines and tell them about the truck being smashed and just 2 days later, we get a letter. We ask what date the investigator was out for that time. Karen refuses to answer. She argues ignorantly that we should keep better care of our stuff, as if it was our fault. Then comes the mailbox incident. We tell her that we have reasons to believe that the investigator is the one causing damages to our property and is harassing us. Karen denies this and says that it's impossible, and that she knows him personally. Oh, is that so? I ask. She says, yes, why? I then pull out my laptop from my book bag that I have been hiding, open it up to the video file already loaded, and show it to the entire board. Enter Exhibit A. I said out loud and played the video. Karen's face is bright red. She says that is not her investigator. I then pulled out the letter about the mailbox, which was complete with a date. It matches a timestamp on a video. She still tries to claim it's not them. No, it's a coincidence. I'm sorry, but you have a vandal, and it's not us. It's not? I let the video play, knowing she's fallen into a pit hard right now. As a man walks toward my car, you can plainly see Bentry management on his shirt. She's no longer red now, she's white as a ghost. The board looks over at her and asks what she has to say about this. Karen is silent and has nothing, except a few noises which I assume was her brain trying to comprehend what just happened. I then proceed to bring up a previous case which I happened to remember before we left for the meeting, where we had a grass violation beside our house. This area they were claiming was actually not visible from the sidewalk, due to the house's shape. I asked point blank, has at any time your investigators walked on our property illegally trespassing? Knowing, as per the rules, they aren't allowed to do that. Karen is visibly shaking and mutters out, no, of course not, with her head down, unable to maintain eye contact with me. She probably feels that I have more evidence, but unfortunately I didn't. So I ask again, and she asks, why? Our neighbors, who are lawyers literally next door to us for the side of the swole walls, stand up and say, actually, that's not true. I have witnessed one of your investigators go between our houses and poke around the trash bins. Bingo. I didn't even realize she had this information. I couldn't have asked for better timing. Karen at this point just starts arguing with our neighbors about no proof. The board proceeds to apologize for the incident, and they were going to discuss what is going to happen in the future about this. At that point, the meeting is over. A month passes and we get a letter that a new person will be in charge of Bentry management and new investigators. She was fired that night. Since she was fired, my father tells me we only get the occasional blip of errors, but they correct it immediately, and they do not bother us anymore. I'm only vengeful when someone deserves it, and that's usually often, so I'll share one I did from 2011. Anyone who has seen my posts knows that I used to work in the private security field. Not mall cops, but highly trained, skilled, and armed security. We worked on residential buildings and complexes that were very high-end, like $200,000 cars in the parking garages high-end. Places like this are Karen Central. Imagine apartments full of Karens and entitled teenagers. Now, the company owner was awesome, a police officer as his regular job. He understood what we faced. His advice was to be nice, but put the hammer down if you have to, and don't take their nonsense. Also, if we didn't get 2 complaints a month about us for worthless stuff, then we were not engaging the residents enough. LOL. So, this is important to the revenge. Each supervisor had 10 to 15 properties under their control. Regular officers patrolled them, but we were in charge of helping with evictions, attending town halls on security issues, deciding how an officer patrols, or updating what areas are problematic or needing to be checked. I had 12. In one apartment complex, we had a couple always calling us. We had an emergency line open from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. When we got there, they complained about their upstairs neighbor. It was a list of things they just changed. Stomping, music, talking, cooking smells, their dog urinating on a balcony, and it dripping onto theirs. Valid complaints if we found evidence, but we never did. When they saw we were starting to question if they were real, they changed tactics and went racist. The couple above them were a sweet and a wonderful middle-aged Asian couple. The husband was an immigrant, but the wife was a born and raised American. These racist creations had only talked to the husband, so they assumed, as all racists do, that they were both immigrants. So this white couple started making comments like, "Those Asians," and "They are in America. Why can't they cook American food?" And "I'm afraid to be in the parking garage. One of them is driving in it." While it angered me, those comments alone weren't enough for an eviction. The only thing I could do was have my officers put the exact phrasing in a report. I did ask the property manager about the comments, and she said if they didn't say them to the residents and the residents didn't complain, there wasn't much she could do. So I tried to think of some way to get them evicted. Not only were they lying to get a couple evicted, but they were also calling in false things and wasting the officers' time to respond. They didn't call just every once in a while. They called sometimes twice in one night, usually 5 to 8 times a week. A month later, the opportunity was handed to me. The Asian couple called me during the day and informed me that they were going out of the country, China, for 2 weeks and no one would be in their apartment. They told me this just in case the other couple started complaining. I would know they were lying, and asked to check their door once a night to make sure it was locked and not broken into. I informed the Asian couple not to tell their neighbors that they were leaving, and besides myself only, to tell the property manager too. We had a patrol meeting that night. Officers didn't work in one specific region, so I told them all my plans. I wanted them to respond each time they called and write down exactly what they said happened, and also in your racial terms, no matter how minor. Mark the report as urgent and send it out. We had an online system for all businesses. Email, schedules, report submitting, you get the idea. So away we go. During those 14 days, I complained 18 times. Everything was documented, and I took it to the manager. She looked it over and said, "Let's evict them." Side note, the client gets charged more for emergency response than they do for regular patrols, meaning their lives were costing money. There was no homeowners association because they were rentals. In this situation, myself, the property manager, and the tenants sit down at a table. The charges for eviction are read. If the eviction of security is related, then I say what violations have been broken and so on. Not opinions, just facts based on a report which the tenants get a copy of. Then the tenants have a right to speak and ask questions. The property manager then decides what happened next. Do they stay or do they go? They were sent a formal letter stating they were facing eviction and had 10 days to set up a meeting. If not, the eviction will be processed. They set one up. I get there and the rude couple and the manager are already present. The wife immediately digs into me because I'm armed. Uniforms for those situations are a dress shirt, slacks, tie, one weapon, and one magazine. Things like elections can be dangerous. I politely informed her that it was my uniform and not her call to make. She tried to say she felt uncomfortable and wanted to reschedule, but the manager said this happens now or I will evict you. So they agreed to continue. For legal reasons, these sessions were recorded by video, so the tenant can't lie in eviction court or sue. In front of me were all 18 reports, and I went over each one: time, date, who called, and the apartment number. I also read out each line telling them to tell me what they feel is false and what is true. The only thing they said is that the racial terms weren't true. At the end of each report, I basically said, the report is accurate in the fact that tenants in apartment XYZ were playing their music too loud, but you're claiming the comments about their race are false. I got a yes answer every time. About the 7th one, I think the wife caught one. She starts complaining that I was dragging it out. I just smiled politely and reminded her that this was my time, and she had ample opportunity to object and ask me questions, but only after I was done. Then I went through the rest and let them build the defense. After I was done getting them to admit the lies, I informed them that the tenants in said apartment were actually out of the country at the time of those 18 reports, and that the tenants provided proof that they were gone. And my officers checked the apartment one time a night and confirmed that it was empty. Then I smiled pleasantly and ended my part, but the look on their face was a mix of anger and fear. They didn't have a defense, basically saying myself and the manager were choosing immigrants over Americans. Oh, did I mention the manager is an immigrant? That went over like a hand grenade in a collection plate. Once they said that, she stopped it and told them she was an immigrant. That made matters worse because they said she was just taken up for her own kind. During this, I'm calm and collected. Inside my mind, I'm thinking, oh heck. After a few more racial remarks, the manager just stopped them and said guilty and that she will process the eviction paperwork with the courts in the morning. Long story short, they were given 14 days, and from what I heard, the judge actually gave them 30 until they called him a racial name. I was able to call a nice Asian couple and let them know that it was all over. And they didn't have to worry because we would no longer respond to calls about their apartment for the next 14 days until eviction came through and the bad tenants left. But they were welcome to call anytime if they needed help or had an issue. Security officers normally want to help so bad but are unfortunately limited by either laws, property management rules, or both. So, it's nice to do some good. Backstory: I am 34 and both my parents are college professors. In 1998, my dad was offered tenure if he went to teach overseas. He agreed that we had a family meeting. The family meeting went as follows. Hey kids, guess what? We're going to Malaysia. Cool, what's that? Before we knew it, our Midwest American family was crammed onto a Malaysian airline plane heading to the home of hash, not the drug, and big exporters of rubber and palm oil. We landed and got settled in. Homeschooling for us, my mom didn't have to work and my dad was getting paid in American dollars, so for the first time ever, we were considered wealthy. We took lots of vacations and I got my own allowance, which I mostly spent on food and cool electronics. One of these vacations was to the island of Langkawi. While there, we did the usual tourist things. On the very last day, my brothers and I wanted to rent a jet ski as we had seen the renter next to the hotel every day and just didn't have time. Our boat was leaving far later in the day, so we knew we had time. We walked to the renter and started to talk to him. While he was talking to us, he was also talking to his counterpart in Malay. We walked to the renter and started to talk to him. While he was talking to us, he was also talking to his counterpart in Malay, a language I had picked up because I was the only one of my family to make friends with the people in my town and went exploring on my own. He told his counterpart to cover the price sign, and he did so with a towel. We knew the price was 25 ringgit per half hour, but the guy was saying no, it was 50. We haggled back and forth and he said that 25 was a local price only. Both my older brothers looked at me like I could change his mind. So in Malay, I told him that we weren't tourists, that we lived on the main island for quite some time and that we couldn't afford an hour and a half at 50. He said, "You're white, you can pay." I said, "What does a double price gain us?" He said, "Insurance. The insurance covers any damage no matter what. A free gas refill. We damaged jet ski, no problem." That wasn't fair at all. But we had in fact lived there for a while and knew there was nothing we could do about it. I called him a name that directly means stupid like a pig, but depending on our religion and class of the person, it's actually a grave insult. However, I called him that as we offered the money, giving him a chance to take the insult and the money or send us away. And he took the money. My oldest brother went first. He went out and played in the waves, jumping and diving, just having fun in general. Then my middle brother, who did much the same, when he came back, he said he thought it was running low on gas because the engine would die sometimes. Now it was my turn. I told the renter he should put gas in, and he said, "Nah, you'll be fine, boy. You'll be fine." I took his word for it because I had never ridden a jet ski and knew my parents wouldn't let me do it alone if they were there. I hit it out and felt like a king. It was awesome, and I got the idea to see if I could reach the neighboring island, which didn't seem too far off. I got about halfway there and the engine started to die. As I hit waves at different angles, it would sputter back up and die, then back up as the next wave hit. If any of you have had the chance to see that place, it's absolutely beautiful. The water is clear and you can see everything. By everything, I mean all the fish, jellyfish, and everything else that wants to eat you or just ruin your day. To add to that, I had no sunscreen, and though I'm a very good swimmer, at age 12, I still had a phobia of swimming in ponds, lakes, and the sea. Kind of the creepy something touched me phobia. Anyway, as I was forced to take note of the beauty and quiet of the sea due to not having gas, I noticed I had drifted south around the island and could no longer see the hotel. Over an hour goes by and nothing. I am past tears and start to notice how thirsty I am. I start rocking forward and backward to get some sort of motion. Eventually I spot a boat, and it's getting late in the day. Hours have passed, I start screaming and yelling to get the boat's attention, and it sees me and comes to check on me. I tell them that I'm out of gas and need help. They ask if I'm American. Automatically, I remember my parents teaching me to claim I'm Canadian because Americans and British are not well liked. They toss me a robe and pull me in. I'm hysterical and going between English, French, and Malay on a rant about how I was going to die. Note, I didn't do well in French class, but it sure came back quick. There was no help but to confuse my new friends. The captain of the boat went inside and brought out food and water, as well as his son who spoke English and Malay. I explained everything, and he said when they were done laying their cages, they would see to me. Time goes by and I watch the guys on the boat jump off. Others toss them wood cages, and they swim to set them up. The kid's father comes out with a jar and a gas can. He says he has a wrong fuel for my jet ski, but knows a trick. He pours a clear liquid into the jet ski followed by green fuel. He offers me the jar and does a drinking motion. I took a swig and it was fire. The strongest thrice liquor I had ever seen. And even now 34, I have never drunk anything that harsh or strong. He tried starting the jet ski and nothing happened. We do this a few more times and then he takes a spray can and tries again while spraying the can into the engine. His son says, "Get on and go fast because it won't last long." I take off and can feel the jet ski protesting and lagging, but I come into the site of the hotel and see my family, police, and a renter on the beach. I gun the thing and crash it on rocks on the beach, sending me flying into the sand and ripping the jet ski apart. I run to my mom as the renter runs to his wreckage. I tell them everything that happened, and the medical team from the hotel looks over me. I've been stung on the foot by a jellyfish, had second-degree burns all over the body, except where my life vest covered. And I had soiled myself. We had already missed the boat to go home, so the hotel let us stay another night. As we were wrapping up on the beach, the renter came back in perfect English, saying we must pay for repairs. That was his only jet ski, and he would now starve. My brother said, "But we paid for the insurance." The renter said, "No insurance for this." And I said, "You charged us 50 instead of 25 and said damage was covered no matter what." The hotel staff heard this and asked what he charged. Apparently, he had been warned not to gouge guests in the past, and they told the police to remove him and ban him from their beach. We went back to the room and my mom gave me the most painful shower I have ever had. The next morning, we had a quick visit with the medical team and left. The jet ski rental was crossed off the board of activities and his whole setup was gone from the beach. I have never ridden a jet ski since. So I had this wild experience the other day, and I just had to share it here. You know those stories you hear about entitled people who just can't accept responsibility for anything? Well, I witnessed one of those in court, and let me tell you, it was like something out of a movie. I had to go to court because of a minor traffic violation. Nothing serious, just a mix-up with a parking ticket. So I'm sitting there in the courtroom, waiting for my turn, And this woman, who I'll call Karen, walks in. She looked like the type who would demand to speak to the manager over the smallest inconvenience. Karen was there to challenge a speeding ticket she got for speeding through a school zone, and now everyone knows that speeding in a school zone is a big no-no. But Karen seemed to think the rules didn't apply to her. She was all dressed up, probably thinking she could sweet-talk her way out of the situation. But boy, was she wrong. The judge called her case and Karen strutted up to the front, acting like she owned the place. The officer who gave her the ticket was there too, ready to present his case. The judge asked Karen to explain why she was challenging the ticket.
Your Honor, this ticket is absolutely ridiculous. I was only speeding because I was late for an important meeting. And besides, there weren't any kids around. So what's the harm?
The officer tells her, "Ma'am, you were going 45 in a 20 miles per hour school zone. The law is the law, regardless of whether or not there are children present. It's for their safety."
This is just a money-grabbing scheme. You guys have nothing better to do than to harass honest citizens like me. This officer is lying. There is no way I was going that fast.
The judge looked at her, clearly unimpressed with her attitude. He turned to the officer and asked him to present the evidence. The officer says, "Your Honor, I had a radar gun reading, which clearly shows she was going 45 miles per hour. I also have dashcam footage that corroborates this."
This is outrageous. That radar gun must be faulty. I bet this officer just wanted to meet his quota.
The judge sighed and asked the officer to play the dashcam footage. Sure enough, it showed Karen's car zooming through the school zone. At a dangerous speed. There was no denying the evidence. The judge said, "Miss Karen, the evidence is clear. You were indeed speeding through a school zone. Do you have anything else to say in your defense?"
That is a joke. I can't believe this kangaroo court. You're all just out to get me because you have nothing better to do. This officer is a liar, and you're an idiot if you believe him.
At this point, everyone in the courtroom was shocked. You could hear a pin drop. The judge's face turned red with anger. "Miss Karen, I will not tolerate such disrespect in my court. You need to calm down and speak respectfully."
Respectfully? You don't deserve my respect. You're just a glorified traffic cop in a robe. This whole system is corrupt.
Clearly, the judge's patience was wearing thin. "Miss Karen, I am giving you a stern warning. If you continue this behavior, there will be serious consequences."
Consequences? What are you going to do? Throw me in jail for speaking the truth? You're a joke.
And then it happened. Karen spat on the judge. Yes, you're a bit right. She actually spat on him. The courtroom erupted in gasps, and before anyone could react, Karen charged at the judge like she was going to attack him. The court guards, who had been standing by, sprang into action. They tackled Karen to the ground like professional football players, pinning her face to the floor and cuffing her hands behind her back. Karen screamed and cursed, flailing around like a wild animal.
Get off me, you morons! This is police brutality! I'll sue all of you!
The judge says, "That's enough. Miss Karen, you have just added assault and contempt of court to your list of offenses. You will be severely punished for this behavior." The guards dragged Karen out of the courtroom, still screaming and cussing. Everyone was in shock, trying to process what had just happened. The judge took a moment to regain his composure before addressing the courtroom. "Let this be a lesson to everyone. Disrespect and violence have no place in this courtroom. Justice will be served fairly, but it will also be served firmly." I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. Karen came in thinking she could weasel her way out of the speeding ticket and ended up getting herself in way more trouble than she could have imagined. It was a classic case of entitlement gone wrong. So that's my story about the most entitled person I've ever encountered. Karen thought she was above the law, and she learned the hard way that no one is. I'm just glad I was there to see it all go down. Sometimes karma really does work in mysterious ways. I'm in a business where major holidays are just another day for us, and requests off are limited for holidays, if even allowed at all. For background, I'm 35, single, and have no children. I have been passed over on scheduled rebids for weekends off because It is easier for you since you don't have kids. This of course makes Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday my days off every week. I'm scheduled to work Friday to Monday. Since I have no family, I usually trade Thanksgiving and Christmas if they fall during the week, so other dealers with families can spend time with their kids. This year, I elected not to. My best friend is going to randomly be in my city this week. His wife's cousin or something like that recently moved here, and he will be spending the holiday at her house. This, of course, means that since I'm off Tuesday through Thursday, I'll be able to go out for some drinks Wednesday night with Ryan. And I have an invite to Turkey Day for the first time since I moved to this city. One of my co-workers, let's call her Karen, has been working for this place way less time than me. She beat me out of another schedule recently because she had 3 kids and having weekends off to spend time with them is so important. Anyway, Karen didn't so much ask as made a comment to me on schedule day. So I let the boss know that you're working Thursday for me. Sorry, I can't trade with anyone this year. I actually have plans. Karen scoffs. Well, it's not like you have any family. You need to do the right thing and let those of us with loved ones spend the holiday with them. Well, I'm sure you get to spend a lot of time with them every weekend while I'm here dealing cards. She just grumbled and walked away. Later on in the employee dining room, about 5 of us, including Karen, were eating lunch. We were talking about the holiday and everyone's plans, and Karen made a snide remark about how I refuse to trade her shifts. All he's gonna do is get drunk and watch football. He won't let me have the holiday off with my family. Yep, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Remember, you told our boss that you needed weekends off for family time. So really, I am doing you a favor by working my normal days so you can have all the weekend off with your kids. You're welcome. I put on the best big grin I could and just looked at her. She was visibly displeased but said nothing else. My co-workers told me that she whined to them about what a jerk I am after I left. Oh well.